Hey everybody, I'm William Green here with Stephen Van Kampen-Lewis, and we are doing another chat today. And this one's going to be kind of like end of the year 2021 in review. How did we do this year? Successes, failures, specifically talking about our orchid collections, what went well for us. Maybe instead of failures, we could say lessons learned. What do you think?
Teachable moments.
Exactly. Perfect. Yeah. Every failure is a step towards success, right?
Absolutely. And just so that we're not overwhelming everybody watching, we're not going to go through all of our successes and
Right.
failures because
Right.
we'd be here till next year.
Yeah. We need to keep a detailed blog if we wanted to do that. But
Yeah.
probably if you follow either of us on social media or on YouTube, then you can you probably kept track of that through the year as you watch things go well and things not so well. So these are just each one of us has kind of chosen a few things that we wanted to highlight as something to talk about during today's chat.
Yeah. I think and just to recap overall, it was here in Central Texas, it was kind of a weird weather year, which, for those of us that grow outside, that's kind of a big deal. We had Snowmageddon, as we call it here in Central Texas, in February, where we had temperatures that were colder than Alaska at that same time of year for a week. And, a couple hundred people here in the state died actually because of the power outages. And we had a week of temperatures well below freezing with, we got snow, ice. And all my orchids were inside. I had to run them inside. And then the summer was rainy, which is a weird thing for us. So lots of bugs. And it was, if you're an outdoor grower here in Central Texas, it was a trial for sure.
You felt it.
Yeah.
And you saw it. You saw the results.
Yeah.
I think you had some pretty good results this year too.
Yeah, there's plenty of good. The flowers that weren't eaten by the bugs were pretty nice and very special because they were still intact.
Well, shall we start with one of your, I don't know, let's do a one success each, and then we'll do a failure each and go back and forth.
Sure. I'm going to start with what I think is one of my bigger successes, and I have props.
Oh my Lord.
So this is, of course, the mother plant of the division that I gave you. I've had this inside for like 2 weeks, and right before the sun comes up every day, it just starts to overwhelm the room with its scent, and then it goes on until about noon.
Oh,
and
it's
it
awesome.
slowly fades in the middle of the day. But so I'm not going to hold that there the whole time. But basically, I figured out how to bloom Walkeriana successfully, despite lights coming from the neighbors. And as like you said, I've been talking about this for a while with my orchids. If there's any night light for a purebred Walkeriana and not the hybrids, they won't bloom at all. So the fact that I found a simple solution, it's just a board of wood that I put between the plants and my neighbor's night light. And I've got 2 more blooming in the greenhouse right now. I'll probably make a video here, this weekend or something and show you all that. But I would say that's one of my bigger successes, is finally getting my bloody Walkerianas to bloom, which is one of my favorite species. So I'm pretty happy about that.
And we all get to learn that lesson along with you, because I mean, actually one of my questions about that was, now say, let's say here's the light source. You're saying that the board just blocking the direct light is enough. Now, obviously there's ambient light still around, right? You live in a city, there's light, but you're saying it's that specific light source that has to be blocked.
Yeah, it's really blocking that point source for the light. And I did wonder about that going into this fall, wondering if that sort of ambient light that makes its way around the board would interrupt the blooming, but no,
it has not. Clearly it has not.
Yeah. So it's a cool lesson, and I'm really happy to sort of tell everyone, because one of the things that so many Walkeriana growers have to say is, I can grow it, but I can't bloom it.
Uh-huh.
Well,
I feel that. I feel those people. I feel their
Yeah.
pain.
Yeah. So
Good.
that's my first success. What about you?
All right. Well, I only got two props out of the tent, so I guess I'll start with one. Back in January of this year, I got two AOS awards on catasetum types. One was on a first bloom Fred Clark Aura Desert Davison, and that thing, it was spectacular, but it was also enormous. So this summer, I divided it into three pieces and I sold all three pieces. So I don't have that plant in my collection anymore. But hopefully the people I sold it to were good enough friends that if I really want a piece back one day, maybe if they're really nice, if I shell out the cash, they'll want to give me a piece back. But yeah, that's gone. But the other one is this one, my Mormodia Jumbo World. And this year, last year, it got an HCC. It had about 37-ish blooms on it. And I really have you to thank for urging me to take that in, because I never thought that that thing would get an award. But I was pleasantly surprised. And then this year, I'm going to back up so you can see, I got the biggest, I mean, just in the grow tent, the conditions are so stable that I got the biggest bulb this thing has ever produced. You can see kind of the back bulbs are just, you know, this is quite a bit bigger. And I got more flowers on this thing than it's ever produced. It's got 40 on 2 spikes.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, wow, I really thought that it had done everything that it could do. But now I'm like, my gosh, how much more can it do? So this is definitely a success, and I'm super proud of this plant. It's my first catasetum type. It was given to me a few years ago, and I've just every year it's been trying to figure out what it likes, and I feel like I'm finally on the right track.
I didn't realize that was your first catasetum type. That's great. You got awarded, and so next year, if you can get a bulb that big, you'll probably get twice as many spikes.
Next year, we want 2 or 3 bulbs that big.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then you can just have this sort of cascade, like, it'll look really cool. And
just all around.
And I got to say, I'm excited. Like, the first time I saw flowers of that, you showed me a couple of years ago. I was like, oh, that's awesome. That's really cool. And then so I'm excited for the division that I got from you to come into its own, so I can see this thing in person and smell it.
Yeah, and smell it, because it does have a nice fragrance. It's not real strong, but it's that, that menthol-y kind of citrusy menthol fragrance, and it's definitely nice. So that's definitely a success this year. All right, let's do a learning. What are the lessons learned? Maybe let's do one each.
Sure. I guess I'm going to show you my 4N Cattleya triumphans from H&R. And this, so I'm glad I picked this up, because you can see it's wiggling. So that's not the failure. That's just something that I learned from picking this up. But so I'll have to repot this. But this little guy is pretty healthy. But the dozen or so others that it came along with in the compot are all dead. So that is the failure. And I've got one more little tiny one over there. And normally I would have tossed that guy, but I have 2 of these left, and it is, it's 4N. I was feeling the leaves earlier, and they are rock hard. They just feel like hard plastic. So this guy, I think, is polyploid. So I really want it to live. But basically, without going into too much detail, the lesson is that I got a compot from H&R. I think it was this year, maybe it was last year. Most of the plants died this year, so I can say that the failure was this year. But basically, it came in perlite. And I don't remember why I didn't repot it right away. I think it was the hot time of year, and I didn't want to disturb them. And I wanted them to get a little bigger, and then I'd repot them in the fall. But it's so hot and such a drainable. So there's no moisture retention in the media. And here in Central Texas, we need that moisture retention during the day when it's really hot. So the plants started to decline, and when they're fresh out of a flask, if they start to decline, they're probably going to die. So I just didn't catch it in time, and so now I have 1 or 2 left. And so I know what happened. There is a lesson learned. repot your bloody community pots before the difficult season or whatever your growing conditions are, whether it's winter or summer, whatever your extreme conditions are. Make sure they're in their happy place before they go into that season.
And now you have a grow tent, so you have the perfect place for new seedlings that come in. You can give them those ideal balanced conditions. And
yes, and this guy lives in there probably permanently now, along with I got a flask of Laelia pumila, selfing from an awarded rubra clone that I'm really excited about. So they're all in there, and they'll be there for a while, the foreseeable future.
Good. I'm looking forward to seeing how things go for you in the tent. Tent growing has been a real game changer for me. So hopefully you experience the same.
I'm excited so far. I think it's a lot of fun. And like you said, the stable conditions, I'm not used to that. So adjusting to that it's like those plants are back in Hawaii almost, which is so easy to grow orchids.
Yeah, for sure. It's just a space issue.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Yeah.
One of my big failures this year was just I have some Paphiopedilums, I had a Dendrobium, and I have a Phalaenopsis schilleriana, and they are all just unhappy, slowly dying. And I tried a few things to try to make them happier, and they're just not working. The plants are just on that slow, steady decline. This path,
you know why?
Sorry, I don't, and I haven't really put up. I don't know what's going on. Before I moved to Colorado, I had a great path collection. I love paths. They're one of my favorite orchids. This was a Michael Kopowitz, and it had just big, gorgeous yellow flowers with the long, 16, 17-inch petals, and just beautiful. And it continually rots and then grows new growth, and then rots and then grows new growth and rots. And I do not know what to do. I have it potted in bark with some granite rocks at the bottom. It's not on the top shelf where all my other plants are. It's on the one shelf down. So the light's quite a bit less than what it would be if it were up with the Cattleyas. And I've got two other paths. I've got a Villosum and I've got a Callosum as well. And they're all just declining. And
but they're all on the bottom shelf?
They're all on the bottom shelf. Yeah.
So all of your declining plants are on the bottom shelf.
Yeah, it seems like there might be something going on, right?
Yeah, I wonder if there's something down there, if they're catching something from the plants up above, or
not enough light, or
maybe.
I mean, when I was growing them in my windowsill, they were doing better than they're doing now. But I don't have windowsill space for them anymore. So I hate to watch them slowly die. I keep hoping that they're gonna figure it out somehow and start to live and grow and be happy again, but it doesn't look like that's the case. So I don't know.
I'm pretty ruthless with my plants heading towards the compost pile. I think I would toss those guys.
Well, one thing that's really cool here is that in Fort Collins, University of Colorado has a plant pathology lab, and you can send specimens to them, and they will look at it and diagnose exactly what it is. They'll tell you the species of bacteria. They'll tell you the species of fungus. They'll tell you if you have bugs. If you send them little samples of the bugs, they'll tell you the species of the bug. And they also give you some advice on what to do about it. So the Schilleriana is in the tent. It's been declining for 2 years. It grows a leaf, and then the leaf turns blotchy and falls off. And then it grows another leaf. So I kind of am to that point where I've given up on them getting better. I hate it, but I'm thinking, well, next best thing might be send what's left of these plants to the lab and figure out what the hell is going on.
Well, that would be lesson learned right there.
Absolutely would. And then I could share that with everyone and be like, this is what this looks like. Not this is what I think it is, but the plant lab said this is what's going on. So
Yeah.
it could be a valuable lesson learned, but I hate it because I absolutely love this plant. And it's such a kick in the teeth to watch it slowly pass away like that.
Yeah, that's frustrating, but it'll open up room for another plant or
It will.
four if you toss all of them.
It'll open up room for the current plants to get bigger.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can't
Well, we're
do more
orchid growers. We
plants.
don't think about the future. We only think about the plant that we want right now. And then we put it in the tent.
Exactly. All right. Well, let's get off the dark and dismal mode. Go back to successes. What's another success that you enjoyed this year?
I'm gonna say that
Oh, I'm gonna guess.
out of
Sickna Keys.
yes, actually.
Oh, yes.
My out of season import Sickna Keys that I got. This one from Miami with a spike.
Oh, that's the Heron Husseinum. Is that it?
This one's Peruvianum, actually.
Peruviana. Oh, that's got the lips got little tentacles all over it, right?
Yeah, it looks like a little squid.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so I got this. So this is the new growth. And when they imported it, they cut off all the roots, including the new ones. So not only did I grab one that was out of season and the new roots were cut off, and I know better than to buy a plant like that, but I was like, I want it.
It was right there. You couldn't say no.
Exactly. And it's living in the tent. You can see the back bulbs are a little more shriveled than they should be for a plant that's in the PET method. So I assume it's still alive and blooming because it got new roots coming out, but they're probably, this long.
Not
it's
visible
just
yet.
enough to get the plant through. I'm kind of wondering if I should cut off the flowers. I don't want to do that.
Right.
And it's in the tent now, so conditions are stable, humidity's high, circulation is good. I'm gonna let it ride.
Yeah, let it go. I mean, if you really, maybe you could let it bloom out and then cut them off early.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
They only last about a week anyway, right?
I assume they'll be male, since this appears to be. Well, no, they have bloomed on previous spikes, so it should be male. That would be my guess. But and then this little one, this is Egertonianum red. I got this from Floralia from this year's order, and it
That's
came
an
a little
import.
later.
They're both imports.
Both imports, yeah. And it did well. It paused for a lot of the summer and then took off at the end. So a plant this big, you would expect this next growth to be this big at least, but it was an import in the summertime. Again, I know better, but the fact that I've done it well twice now makes me overly confident. So I'll probably kill the next one.
Well, hopefully you won't. I just watched your video with Fred Clark about importing orchids yesterday. And I mean, I think if he can do it, you can do it, Steve.
Yeah. And it's fun because you get new weird stuff that you don't get.
That nobody has.
That nobody has, exactly. Yeah. What about you? What you got?
Well, inevitably, Cattleya rex is going to come up here. So this is one of my huge successes this year was having 8 blooming rexes over the course of about 4 months. The first one bloomed in late April. The last one bloomed in mid-August.
Wow. That's cool.
Since converting to the grow tent, they took what I thought I knew about Rex and they said, nope, you know nothing. So it looks like we're on track this year. I've got basically my whole collection has already started to grow again. So that if those are going to be blooming growths, that means that those are going to be blooming again early, like in mid to late spring, April, May. So that will be interesting. But
how many of those were first bloomers? Was it a bunch or just a couple?
4 of them were first bloom.
Okay.
So 4 were repeats and 4 were first bloom.
Very cool.
And it was nice, and it was really cool to see because they're all siblings. It was really cool to see differences among the siblings and similarities as well. Some of them have bigger flowers. Some of them have really nicely shaped flowers, but not necessarily bigger. Some of them put out 2, some of them put out 4 on their first bloom.
Oh, wow.
So it was, and also the way that they grow. Some of them put out a growth and then put out a blooming growth. Some put out like 3 growths this year and didn't bloom. I mean, it's just been really interesting to see how the difference. And I don't know if it's cultural because they're all kind of growing a little bit differently, but having 8 blooming Rexes was really a highlight this summer. And then the cherry on top was that one of them got awarded with an HCC in June. So that is the first Cattleya Rex in the United States to get a AOS Flower Quality Award, and I couldn't be more proud of it.
The first, I didn't realize
one ever,
that.
yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah. Hopefully we can do more.
Is that the one you knocked up?
This one knocked up 2 of its sisters.
Okay.
That does not sound very nice, but
yeah.
But yeah, so it has genes. It has passed on its genes, and actually, the one that was awarded, I collected seed from it last year, so it already has seedlings in the works at Meyer's laboratory.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
But then this year, I was just like, all right, I'm pollinating everything with this. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
Yeah, I'm excited.
All right, I got one more failure for
back to the dark clouds, the thorns, roses and thorns.
Yeah.
Thorn.
So you mentioned Sickna Keys Heron Hussein.
Oh no.
It's still alive, but you can see I had to cut off the base. So this was one also that I got at TAM Miami, and it was already fully dormant. It had 2 bulbs. The other small one, the other one was like this big. It stayed outside. It got 1 or 2 rainfalls in, I guess, mid to late October. And that was enough to make it rot because it was already dormant. Just that little bit of rain. So Sickna Keys, they just want to die.
And was it rain with cool temperatures?
No, I don't think so. I think we stayed above 55 at night, even with the rain.
Okay.
So
I would say 55 and wet would constitute cool.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. 55 and cooler. Yeah. I'll have to look that up. Maybe I'll look on my sensor push to see when that, because I can see when the humidity spikes and then see if the temperature drops, and I can certainly go back and check it out. I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah. So I went outside and I was just bopping around, and I realized that the rot with these guys will start at the base, and you'll see it turn like a brown or just a brown and mushy. And so you just
starts creeping up.
Yeah, exactly. And it will slowly make its way up until for some reason it often gets to about here and then just stops. And then you're left with this nub, which may or may not do anything. But I got it before it came a nub. So this should be good enough to get me new growth in the spring once I start extending the daylight in its indoor habitat area.
Oh, so is that going to be a grow tent plant as well?
It's next to the grow tent. I've got a little tray of bulbophyllums, of high elevation bulbophyllums, and it lives kind of it's this sort of planter, and there's a brick in the bottom with it's in the more humid area of that section.
Okay.
So, and that helps to keep, since it has no roots or leaves or anything, it just keeps the humidity elevated, but not getting watered on it. So far so good. It's been like this since, like I said, since October, end of October.
And I imagine you've done this before. You've had plants that started to rot. You've had to cut off pieces, and then they sprout a new sprout, and then you can root that.
Yeah, and most likely what will happen is I'll get a new sprout somewhere along here, and then I'll put it in the pot, and then I'll lash it down so that it can't wiggle, and then let it grow normally.
Cool. Well, let's hope you get multiple sprouts on that bulb.
That'd be very cool. But yeah, I mean, Heron Hussein, I can't find that in the US anymore. That was one of Fred Clark's that he used in his breeding stock years ago, made really cool hybrids with it, and I just haven't found it since.
All right. Well, here's hoping. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck, Heron Hussein. Let's see. Another thing that I consider to be learning experience that I haven't learned the lesson yet because I don't know what the heck it is a few months ago, lots of my callias just started shriveling up, and they had good root systems and temperatures were normal. Humidity was a little lower. Humidity was probably getting down to 40% once a day, you know, kind of like this, like lowest point when everything started to dry out.
Shouldn't bother them.
And bulbs just started shriveling up. And I still don't know what the heck caused it. I was at that same time, there could be a variety of factors. At one point, I thought I would just do a collection-wide clean out, and I mixed up Phyton 27, which is a copper-based fungicide, bactericide, antiseptic plant solution. I mixed it up per instructions. It was like a teaspoon per gallon, something like that, and sprayed everything. And then I proceeded to watch the roots on many of my plants start to die. And I was like, oh. Incidentally, I also sprayed my Cattleya maxima that was just opening up 2 full spikes, and it destroyed all the flowers. They all turned brown. I was like, oh, okay. So
seems like a pretty good correlation. I mean, correlation doesn't always equate causation, but sometimes it does.
Right. And then about a month and a half after that, I started using an aquarium conditioner in my water. The idea was it would take the chloramine out and make the water more friendly for probiotic solutions like InnocuCore that I like to spray on my plants.
Oh, yeah.
But then I discovered that the plants were starting to turn yellow, and they were starting to look like they weren't getting nitrogen or something. And so I put that on YouTube. I was like, what's going on? And a lot of people were saying that water conditioner is probably pulling everything out of your water, or at least enough that it's affecting your plants. And I actually consulted one of my friends his PhD is in organic chemistry. And he's like, yeah, very possible that it's pulling those nutrients out. And since I always water with a teeny bit of fertilizer, it may have been enough that it was pulling it out. So long story short, bulbs are wrinkled, leaves are turning yellow. I don't know why, but I have some pretty good indications. But since I've stopped that stuff, it's been about a month and a half, 2 months since I've stopped it. Many plants are still shriveled, still yellow, and now they're starting to grow. And I'm like, okay, so now what?
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, it sounds like they'll bounce back. You caught it early enough, but I would never thought. And I do remember like watching your videos and talking to you and paying attention to that discussion about the chlorine and it being locked, the nutrients being locked up by the dechlorinator. And I don't think I would have ever thought of that, doing that. But I mean, it sounds like your plants are doing pretty well with the chlorine. So
right.
Just resetting to that, it sounds like, you know, they'll bounce back hopefully fairly quickly.
I know it's weird. Like you something seems to work, but you're always looking for things to work better, right? So you change something and sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. So we're in the middle of a doesn't right now. So hopefully I might have to wait until the new growths have matured and put out roots before I see like what I would consider full recovery, which is the bulbs are plump again, you know?
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Well, I mean, it sounds like we've got a lot of successes and a few teachable moments or lessons learned. So
many more than we discussed today.
But I mean, that's the cool thing about growing all these is, you know, there's so much to learn. Like,
right.
So when you get your first, you know, Phalaenopsis from the grocery store and you kill it, you know, your learning curve, you're growing in these huge leaps and bounds, right? And then, like, you know, once you're at our stage where you've been doing this for a while, you're looking for that like sort of incremental bump up, that next level, and then sometimes you go down, you know, and then you got to go back up. So it keeps it fun and interesting, and
And I'll be honest, one thing that I really like about orchids is that there are no shortcuts. You can have all the money in the world. You can buy the best equipment, the most amazing greenhouse, watering systems, top fertilizers, read all the books. And until you have that hands-on experience, it just can't, you can't just know, you know what I mean? You have to grow the plants for a while. That's something that I really, really like about them is they always keep you on your toes. They're always teaching you things, patience above all. And because it is such a struggle, you know, it makes me mad. People are like, oh, orchids are easy to grow. It's like,
I mean, some are, but some are not.
Yeah, easy.
All 25,000 species are easy to grow? No.
That's
all 300 and 400,000 hybrids are easy to grow? No.
It's hard to say that. So,
but there are some that are. You know,
if
like
you know basic plant stuff, but if you say that to someone who doesn't know anything about plants, yeah, orchids are easy. It's like, no, you need to like grow a philodendron first.
Asterisk.
Yeah. There's a lot. I mean, I call them my green pets because they literally require as much attention as a dog or a cat or a, you know, I mean, you can't just ignore them. Although sometimes you can.
Benign neglect.
Right. Yeah. It's like you said, every statement that has to do with orchids has got 6 asterisks at the end of it.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, and I think it also speaks to the fact that, you know, shameless plug for us, those of us who've done this, we can relay that information, you know, via YouTube or on social media, or, you know, you can also you can speak to your local growers at your local society, and they're going to tell you a lot of the same tricks that they learned after killing some of their plants and then figuring out what they did or what not to do. So I think it really speaks to the fact that, you know, there is knowledge out there. Some of the sources are better than others, certainly.
Sure. And just because something works perfectly for you does not mean it will work for someone else.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. Everybody's growing conditions are a little different. And yeah, just because you see something over here doesn't mean it can be done over here.
All right.
That's it. Happy New Year.
Yes. Happy New Year to everybody out there. Happy growing. I wish everyone a successful 2022 with more successes than failures.
More of these.
Yes.
Than these.
Yes. I think you just nailed it. All right. Well, Stephen, has always been a pleasure speaking with you.
It's fun to chat, and we'll do it again.
All right. See you next time.
See ya.
Bye.